It's been 8 years since my brother, Carl, the one who shares my birthday, betrayed me in the worst possible way with Amy, the woman I thought I'd spend my life with. Now, out of the blue, my family wants me back, but they have no idea the truth that would turn their world upside down. I'm 25 and the baby of the family, with an older brother, Michael, and sister, Sarah, along with my twin, Carl. Growing up, I always felt like the odd one out, the black sheep. It was obvious from a young age. My family lived and breathed sports. Dad was a basketball legend at the local high school. Mom played volleyball. Michael was soccer star and Sarah dominated the softball field. And Carl? He was the golden boy, the star running back. Me? I found my passion in archery, a sport my family dismissively called wimpy. My parents poured all their attention and energy into my siblings' athletic pursuits. They rarely came to my tournaments. I practically had to beg them to show up. I went to 20 tournaments between the ages of 14 and 16, and they only made it to one. I wasn't neglected, not in the traditional sense, but they were never emotionally present for me the way they were for my siblings. As a teenager, that stung, and every time I tried to talk to them about it, I was dismissed as an attention seeker. But this wasn't the reason they kicked me out of the family. At 15, I started dating Amy, who was in my grade. After dating for 6 or 7 months, I introduced her to my family and they loved her. I know it sounds crazy to say now, but I genuinely believed I could see a future with her. Almost 3 years later, one of Amy's former friends told me she'd been cheating on me. She didn't know who the guy was. When I confronted Amy, she admitted it and that it was my twin brother. She basically said, while she had loved me, her feelings for Carl were somehow greater. The same day, I confronted Carl at home and I lost it. Years of simmering resentment towards him and the rest of my family exploded. I punched him, knocked him out cold. I know I shouldn't have resorted to violence, but it was the culmination of everything. To keep me from being prosecuted, as I was almost old enough to be tried as an adult, I was sent to live with my aunt, who was estranged from the family and lived a couple of hours away. From that moment on, I had no contact with them. It was incredibly difficult at first, but with the support of my aunt and her husband, I eventually stopped longing for a relationship with them. I transferred to a new high school, went to college in Miami, and graduated with a degree in electrical engineering. Eventually, I met the woman who would become my wife. At my wedding, the thought of inviting them flickered through my mind, but I quickly dismissed it. I couldn't bear the thought of any drama overshadowing our celebration. Shortly after, my wife and I found a house about an hour's drive from my aunt, a distance that felt both necessary and liberating. Then, the joy of welcoming our daughter into the world filled our lives. Just last week, almost a year to the day of her birth, a Facebook message from my parents popped up. They expressed a desire to reconnect over Christmas at their place. My initial reaction was a mix of surprise and apprehension. I told them I'd consider it, explaining that we might already have other plans, but promised a definite answer soon. Almost simultaneously, friend requests from Michael and Sarah appeared, which I found unsettling. My wife, bless her, has been wonderfully supportive. She said that if I decide to go, she and our daughter will spend Christmas with her father. She doesn't want to risk any unnecessary stress, especially now that she's 2 months pregnant, and I completely understand. Now I'm left with this question: should I go? Should I attempt to rebuild those bridges, fragile as they may be? I'm so torn. Part of me wants to believe they genuinely regret what happened and want to apologize. Maybe they finally understand the pain they caused. But another, more cautious part of me worries. What if this is just a setup? What if they expect me to apologize to Carl, something I absolutely will not do? Any guidance would be so appreciated. It feels like I'm standing at a crossroads, unsure which path to take. I need to make a decision. They want something from you, make no mistake. Whether it's money, free labor, a vital organ, access to my children, or simply a boost to their own image in front of their friends, there's always a motive. I'm not suggesting you shouldn't see them, but I would caution you to keep your expectations grounded. Brace yourself for a speech that goes something like, "We need you to do X for us to truly reconcile," and have a ready-made exit strategy in place. Honestly, as a mother, I can't imagine cutting off one of my children for 8 years just because their sibling did something wrong. I just can't wrap my head around it. Whether you can forgive their abandonment, turning their backs on you for almost a decade while you lived with your aunt, is entirely your decision. Personally, I don't know if I could. If you find you can't, and you don't want to see them again, I doubt anyone who knows the full story would blame you. And if they do, then perhaps their opinion is not worth considering. Update 1. I had intended to post an update sooner, but life got in the way in a very painful way. Just 2 days after Christmas, my wife was suddenly struck with intense abdominal pain, making it nearly impossible for her to stand. Her sister and I rushed her to the hospital, where we received the devastating news that she had suffered a miscarriage and that immediate surgical intervention was necessary. Explaining what had happened to my wife was, without a doubt, the hardest part. Due to post-operative complications, she had to stay in the hospital for an additional 2 days. I'm trying my best to be strong for my wife and our daughter, but honestly, I'm struggling. Regarding my original post, many of you wisely advised me against spending Christmas with them, given the emotional weight of the holiday. I took that advice to heart, deciding to spend the remainder of the holidays supporting my wife. They never made time for me, so why should I make time for them, was my thought. When I texted them my decision, I expected some argument, but surprisingly, they said they respected my decision and looked forward to seeing me after the holidays. This response prompted me to dig a little deeper into my family's lives to understand what motivated their sudden interest. Michael is a corporate lawyer at a big firm in my hometown. His Facebook shows he is married since 2016 and he has 2 daughters. Sarah seems to be married to a doctor. 8 years ago, she was studying to be a nurse, and now it looks like they have a son together. I have a friend who still lives in my hometown and knows my parents' friends. She told me that Sarah had divorced her first husband, the one she was dating back then, after he was involved in a mail fraud scheme. Carl married Amy right out of high school, and they have 2 children. I can't quite discern their professions from Facebook, but the fact that they bought a large house during the pandemic suggests they aren't exactly struggling financially. My dad seems to be going through a midlife crisis, and my mother is deeply involved in the wellness community. All of this makes me wonder why, after all this time, they suddenly want to connect with me. The reasons for their sudden interest in my life are a puzzle. It's probably not money. My parents certainly weren't hurting financially 8 years ago. They actually earned more than my wife and I do now, and none of my siblings are exactly struggling. So, I doubt it's about needing financial assistance. Organ donation flickered through my mind, but it felt like a long shot. Someone online pointed out that Carl, being my twin, would be the most suitable match if that were the case. But I dismissed it. Just before Christmas, he was posting pictures of himself skiing, seemingly in perfect health. Then there's my daughter. Could they be reaching out because they want a relationship with her? I honestly don't know. It's not as if she's their first granddaughter. There are others. It's most likely they found out about her through my wife's Facebook. She's since made her account private. Frustrated, I finally contacted my aunt, the one who raised me. I needed answers, and she had them. To understand why this is happening now, you need to understand why she was estranged from the family in the first place. My paternal grandparents had 4 children. My father was the second oldest, and my aunt was the third. After college, she refused to join the family business, choosing to live life on her own terms. My grandparents disowned her instantly and completely cut off contact. However, about 4 years ago, my grandfather started making overtures, trying to reconnect. Then, about a month ago, he started fishing for information about me, what I was doing, if I was married, if I had children. My aunt rightfully called him out, questioning his sudden interest after how much he supported Carl in the past. That's when things got twisted. He told her that the reason was because I supposedly cheated on Amy with one of her close friends, and therefore deserved whatever outrage was coming my way. Apparently, he's been told, and readily believes, being the religious zealot that he is, that after this alleged affair, The woman Amy thought I cheated with ran to Carl and Sarah for support. And that when I found out, I confronted and violently attacked them both. While Sarah did try to come between Carl and me, I never laid a hand on her, and I certainly never harmed Carl. Hearing my aunt tell this ridiculous narrative, my jaw practically hit the floor. The sheer fabrication of it all was staggering. The betrayal cut deep. I couldn't fathom how my own family could fabricate such a malicious lie about me and then circulate it like gossip. Later, my aunt, bless her heart, filled Grandpa in on the actual events, the real truth. She told me he was stunned, completely blindsided because he'd always held Carl in such high regard. Then, Grandma, out of the blue, asked my aunt for my phone number, which thankfully, she refused to give her. It didn't take long for me to piece together why my parents and siblings were suddenly so eager to reconnect. Apparently, Grandpa, in his own way, had laid down the law. He told them that unless they apologized for their past treatment of me and invited me to Christmas dinner, they'd be removed from his will. And Grandpa? He's a multi-millionaire. So their sudden interest wasn't about remorse or reconciliation. It was about cold, hard cash. They were more concerned about their inheritance than their daughter and sister. Hearing that from my aunt just solidified my decision. I blocked them all, every single one. Why waste my breath? As far as I was concerned, they ceased to exist. I have my wife to care for after what she endured, and a supportive, loving family of my own now, my in-laws. But the story doesn't end there. 3 days after New Year's, my work phone rang. An unknown number. As a professional, I get calls from numbers I do not know frequently, so I wasn't really alarmed. I answered, and there it was, Grandpa's voice. He must have dug up my number from the company website. The first thing he did was apologize, a belated apology for 8 years of silence. He said he was sorry he hadn't been there for my graduation, my wedding, the birth of my daughter. Honestly, we weren't that close before, so his absence hadn't particularly bothered me. What came next, though, was unexpected. He told me he was so disgusted with the rest of my family, their blatant greed, that he was cutting them all out and adding me back into the will. A significant addition. I was conflicted. The money, undoubtedly, would be helpful. But at the same time, I didn't want him using this inheritance as leverage, as a way to buy access to my daughter's life. We talked for almost half an hour, and for a moment, a sliver of hope flickered. Maybe, just maybe, we could build some sort of relationship. And then he dropped the bomb. He expressed his disappointment that my daughter hadn't taken the family name. Let me explain. When my wife and I got married, we discussed the last name issue. Due to a legal obstacle, I couldn't legally change my last name to hers, but we both agreed that any children we had would carry her name. That was our decision, made with love and respect. Hearing his complaint, the years of hurt, anger, and resentment boiled over. I unleashed on him, calling him an expletive old man and a barrage of other, less than pleasant names. I told him, point blank, to never contact me again. The sheer audacity of this man. After all the pain they put me through, to think he could use money, even a vast inheritance, to control me, to dictate my family's choices? Absolutely not. That's a line I will never allow him to cross. Even if I do get that money, which I highly doubt, I'm donating every single penny to the local women's shelter. He's just full of empty promises, like always. These past weeks have been brutal, a real test. I'm clinging to the hope that I'll come out stronger on the other side. It's unsettling how my husband's family has all gone dark online, locking down their Facebooks. It makes me wonder what they'll try next to get to me. I wouldn't be surprised if they hired a private investigator to track me down. I don't think they know where I'm living, but I can't be sure. I've considered getting a restraining order, but their family is full of lawyers. That's just going to complicate things. I barely had a chance to answer questions from my last post before it vanished. I'll try to respond for the next day or two, but after that, I need to step away from this platform for a while. Thank you to everyone who has offered advice. I genuinely wish you all the best in the new year. Update 2. Okay, everyone, time for a massive update, and believe me, it's been quite a ride. So much has happened since my last post, and I've got some pretty weighty things to share. First, my grandpa. Our relationship has always been complicated, to say the least. Distant is probably a better word. We just never connected. But recently, he completely surprised me. He actually agreed with my decision for the kids to take their mom's last name. More than that, he said he's okay with them deciding if they want to change it when they're older. For a man of his generation, that's incredibly forward-thinking, and honestly, his support meant more than I can say. And then, when I went to visit to introduce my kids to their great-grandpa, he dropped a complete bombshell. He told me he's included me in his will, and I'm inheriting something like $2.3 million in assets. Yes, you read that right. Millions. I was absolutely stunned, not just by the amount, but because it suddenly explained everything. All of a sudden, renewed interest from my estranged family. It's become painfully obvious that their recent eagerness to reconnect had less to do with patching things up and more to do with the prospect of a large inheritance. It's kind of sickening when you realize it, but sadly, not entirely unexpected, considering our history. The whole situation has sent me reeling, dredging up all kinds of family drama from over the years. I've always been the black sheep, never fitting in because I wasn't obsessed with sports like everyone else. Archery became my thing, even if everyone else thought it was totally uncool. But honestly, the real turning point was what happened with my brother 8 years ago. It still stings. He got involved with my girlfriend at the time, and instead of support, I was the one who got pushed out. They chose him, essentially erasing me from their lives. And now, after all this time, they're reaching out, wanting to reconnect right when Grandpa decides to change his will. A coincidence? I highly doubt it. Introducing my kids to Grandpa actually went better than I expected. Seeing them meet him was surprisingly nice, and he genuinely seemed to enjoy their company. We talked, really talked, and he shared a lot of old family stories. It was fascinating, giving me so much to mull over. But it's hard to shake this feeling, this deep-seated suspicion that there's always some hidden motive with them, some angle they're working. Now I'm at a crossroads, trying to figure out my next move. What do I even do with this potential inheritance? Do I really want to dive back into the family drama pool just because of the money? And how do I navigate Grandpa's sudden interest in my life without constantly feeling like it's all tied to the will? It's a lot to process. I'm trying to figure out the best way forward. Any advice, anyone who's been through something similar, I'm all ears. Family dynamics can be so complicated, and right now it feels like I'm stuck in the middle of some ridiculous soap opera. Thank you for letting me vent. This community's support has been invaluable through all of this craziness. I will keep you posted on what happens. Fingers crossed for less drama and more peace. Update 3. Okay, Reddit, here's the latest. Someone, and my money is on my Uncle Gary, he's never been able to keep his mouth shut, leaked information about Grandpa's will. My Facebook inbox has officially turned into a war zone. I'm being bombarded with messages from relatives I haven't heard from in years. The accusations are flying fast and furious, ranging from me being a master manipulator to somehow tricking a sweet old man into changing his will. Honestly, the sheer creativity of their accusations is impressive enough to write a series. The crazy part? I haven't done a single thing. I barely talk to Grandpa, let alone have the power to influence his will. Here I am, suddenly cast as the family's public enemy #1. The messages flooding my inbox are enlightening, to say the least. First, my older sister, who usually struggles to remember my birthday, sent a lengthy tirade about family loyalty and how I've supposedly shattered everyone's trust. It closed with a particularly cutting, "Hope you're happy with yourself," which felt more like a curse than concern. Then came Dave, my cousin, crawling out of the woodwork after years of radio silence. He started all saccharine and nostalgic, reminiscing about childhood summers, before dropping the bomb about Grandpa's will. The shift was so abrupt, it gave me whiplash. And then there's Aunt Linda, who didn't even bother with subtlety. She directly accused me of using dark magic, her words, I swear, to manipulate Grandpa. The sheer ridiculousness of it all left me oscillating between laughter and genuine offense. Honestly, the audacity, the dramatics, it's become my new bizarre form of entertainment. My wife and I are now taking bets on the next outlandish accusation. Will Uncle Joe claim I implanted subliminal messages into Grandpa's dentures? Will Cousin Sarah launch a Facebook campaign to rescue Grandpa from my evil clutches? The possibilities are both endless and utterly absurd. This whole mess has, surprisingly, brought things into sharper focus. Watching my family descend into this avaricious frenzy over money has only reinforced my decision to distance myself in the first place. There's something strangely liberating about seeing their true colors splashed across the canvas. It validates my choice to prioritize my own well-being and keep them at arm's length. For me, it's not about the money, not even a little. I've worked hard to build a life I genuinely love, far removed from their toxic dynamics. I have a wonderful wife, amazing kids, and a peaceful home. No inheritance, no matter how substantial, could ever compare to that. Grandpa himself seems blissfully unaware of the chaos he's unleashed. Or maybe he's more cunning than I give him credit for, and this is his final, elaborate test to expose everyone's true motivations. The last time we spoke, he was simply concerned with tying up loose ends, making peace, and ensuring I knew he supported me, regardless of what anyone else thought. It's strangely touching, even amidst this hurricane of familial drama. For now, I'm just taking a step back and observing the spectacle. I'm meticulously documenting every message, partly for self-protection if things escalate legally, but also because you never know when you'll need a good, hard laugh at the sheer absurdity of it all. As for a response? Silence. No calls, no messages, no engagement whatsoever. I'm not getting dragged into their circus. It's like watching some ridiculous drama unfold on TV, one where you secretly cheer for the craziness to happen, all while curled up safe and sound on your sofa. Thanks for letting me get all this off my chest and for the advice you've all given me before. This has been a truly bizarre time, and somehow, sharing it all here really does help me cope. I'll definitely keep you updated if any more madness ensues, but for the time being, I'm cherishing the sense of calm that comes from finally feeling like I know what I want and where I'm going. Talk to you all in the next update. Update 4. Okay. Everyone, prepare yourselves. A few members of my own family have officially plunged into completely uncharted territory. They're actually suing me. The reason? They're claiming that because my children don't share the family surname, I'm not entitled to inherit anything from Grandpa. Their entire argument rests on some strange, twisted interpretation of family legacy and this ridiculous sense of entitlement, which, let's be honest, is just a pathetic attempt to get their greedy little hands on Grandpa's money. But, of course, there's more. They're also trying to challenge the validity of Grandpa's will itself, questioning his mental state at the time he made it. According to them, only someone who wasn't in their right mind would leave a significant portion of their estate to someone whose children don't carry on the family name. It's like they're trying to portray me as some kind of evil genius who cunningly manipulated a vulnerable old man into cutting them out of his will. I know Grandpa was absolutely livid when he found out about the lawsuit. Despite his age, he has this fire in him, this strength, that I've always deeply admired. He called me up, practically spitting with fury, and assured me that he had everything under control. I have a very good lawyer, and I absolutely will not let these greedy opportunists tear my family apart, he told me. It was both reassuring and, in a way, heartbreaking to hear him so worked up and upset about his own family's actions. He is now fully engaged in this battle, working closely with his lawyer to defend his decision and, more importantly, to prove his own mental competence. He's made it crystal clear to everyone that his will reflects his true wishes and that he made those decisions with a clear, rational mind. This lawsuit, unsurprisingly, has thrown the entire family into utter chaos. Some of the relatives, who were initially sitting on the fence, have now officially chosen sides, with the vast majority of them aligning against me, most likely fueled by either blatant greed or pure, unadulterated spite. The few who are trying to remain neutral are wisely staying completely out of the drama, but the tension at family gatherings, not that I would ever even consider attending one, is apparently unbearable. The reactions to Grandpa's unwavering defense of me and his will have been pretty varied. Some are genuinely shocked that he's taking such a firm stand, while others are furious and just doubling down on their ridiculous claims. It's honestly like watching a slow-motion train wreck, seeing this family I grew up with implode in real time. On the legal side of things are actually looking quite solid for us, thankfully. Grandpa's lawyer is one of the absolute best in the business, and he's been incredibly thorough in documenting Grandpa's mental fitness and the undeniable clarity of his intentions when he revised his will. They've collected signed statements from his doctor, close friends, and even other family members, all attesting to his mental acuity. We're also preparing ourselves for the very real possibility that this could drag on for quite some time. Our lawyer has been incredibly proactive, meticulously building our defense and exploring every conceivable angle. The endless meetings, the reams of paperwork, and the intensely focused strategy sessions, they're more exhausting than I ever imagined. This entire situation has been a relentless drain. For me, it's felt like a relentless storm of stress, frustration, and disbelief. To witness my own family turn on each other, and on me, over money has been deeply disheartening, but it's also been a harsh education. Thankfully, my wife has been my constant anchor, helping me navigate this chaos and trying her best to keep a sense of normalcy for our children at home. Update 5. Well, the news is finally here. We won. Not just a win, but a complete victory. The judge dismissed my family's claims against Grandpa's will entirely, stating unequivocally that there was absolutely no evidence of manipulation on my part and that Grandpa was of perfectly sound mind when he made his decisions. And the kicker? Because their claims were deemed so utterly baseless and, frankly, frivolous, the court ordered them to pay both Grandpa's and my legal fees. I mean, could you imagine a more amazing outcome? You'd think being on the losing end and on the hook for our legal bills would make my relatives think differently. But it only ushered in the next phase of this whole saga. Almost immediately after the verdict, several family members began showing up at my doorstep, literally, and calling me nonstop, practically begging for forgiveness. They wanted me to somehow convince Grandpa to change his mind and put them back in his will. A complete reversal from their previous aggression and sense of entitlement. I have to admit, telling them to get lost was one of the most satisfying moments of my life. After years of being treated as the black sheep and then being dragged through this legal nightmare, I had absolutely no sympathy left for their desperate pleas. I made it abundantly clear that not only would I not advocate for them with Grandpa, but that they were no longer welcome in my life, period. The bridges were irrevocably burned, and I was holding the match this time. Grandpa was just as resolute when he heard about their latest theatrics. He scoffed dismissively and said he had absolutely no intention of changing a single word in his will. Let them learn the hard way, he told me over the phone, his voice firm. Though I could detect the fatigue beneath his tone. This whole ordeal has taken a toll on him, too, but he was so happy to know justice prevailed and that his true intentions were upheld. This whole experience has truly opened my eyes. I've learned that family isn't always about blood. It's about actions, about respect, and about what's right. My real family, the people who proved their loyalty throughout everything, consists of my wife, our children, my grandpa, and a select few treasured friends. Everyone else has faded into background noise. With the lawsuit finally settled, I'm directing my energy toward the future. We're planning a short trip, just the four of us, my wife, the kids, and I, to unwind and celebrate our victory. I've promised Grandpa more frequent visits, making sure he gets to enjoy his great-grandchildren without the dark cloud of family greed hanging over us. I'm so thankful for the support and advice I received from all of you during this difficult time. It's been quite a journey, and sharing it here has been incredibly therapeutic. I'll continue to share updates from time to time, but I hope that the stories I share in the future will be centered around more joyful and less dramatic events. Take care, and remember, standing up for what's right sometimes means standing against others, even if they share your blood. Update 6. I'm writing this update with a heavy heart. Some of you have been following my family situation, and unfortunately, things have taken another turn. My grandpa, who was so important to me and featured prominently in my stories, has passed away. Grief isn't the only thing weighing me down. The family drama didn't take a break to let us breathe. Grandpa passed away recently after a short illness. While not entirely unexpected, given his age, it's still a painful loss. In his final affairs, he left a personal letter for me, which was both touching and clarifying. He wrote of his deep regret for the years we lost, explaining the reasons behind his decisions. He apologized for not being there when I needed him and said he was proud of the person I've become despite the chaos within our family. The letter is something I will always cherish. It was written in his precise handwriting, each word carefully chosen, and it brought a sense of closure to issues that had troubled me for years. It was Grandpa's attempt at making peace, and I'm grateful for that. As the executor of his will, I had a front-row seat to the unfolding drama once his will was made public. Grandpa was quite wealthy, and he left a significant inheritance to me, stating in his will that it was both a gesture of love and an act of reconciliation. After the recent court battle, which confirmed Grandpa's mental competence and his right to decide on his estate as he wished, you'd think my relatives would back off. But you'd be wrong. Almost immediately, my phone was flooded with messages and calls. Relatives who hadn't bothered to check in on Grandpa or me for years were suddenly eager to express their grief and family solidarity. But their real intentions quickly became clear. Here's a glimpse into the messages I've been receiving. A cousin I haven't seen in over a decade messaged me about struggling with mortgage payments and suggested a small contribution from the inheritance could save their family home. An aunt who once said I'd never amount to anything suddenly remembered our close childhood bond. She strongly suggested that investing in her failing business would be what Grandpa wanted, as it would keep the money in the family. My younger brother, who sided against me during the lawsuit, sent a lengthy, rambling email complaining about how unfair it was that I was hoarding family resources that could benefit everyone. I've had to be firm, maybe even harsh. My response has been consistent. No. I made it clear that the inheritance was a legal matter, dictated by Grandpa's clear wishes, and not a family slush fund to be divided up. This whole situation has been weighing heavily on me, reminding everyone that their current hardships, however difficult, can't justify ignoring Grandpa's will. After the previous legal battle, I'm not taking any chances this time. I've made sure to speak with my lawyer, meticulously documenting every interaction to ensure everything is legally sound. My wife and I are carefully considering how to use this inheritance responsibly. We're thinking about setting up college funds for the kids, donating to some charities close to our hearts, and maybe investing in some secure, long-term options. I really want to honor Grandpa's memory by using this money to build a more secure future for our children and help those in need, not contribute to more family drama. Honestly, dealing with this has been completely draining, but in a strange way, it's also been eye-opening. I see now just how deeply toxic patterns can overshadow genuine affection, and how money can warp family ties into something almost unrecognizable. My priority now is my immediate family, my wife and our kids, and focusing on moving forward, carrying the lessons learned from Grandpa's life and these recent conflicts with me. Thank you for listening, really. This community has been such a lifeline, a real support system through all the highs and lows. I'm hoping my next update will be much more positive, maybe sharing details about how we've used the inheritance for good or even just talking about our plans for a family getaway, far, far away from all of this.